I am here and honored to be here with the legendary John Waite. John was a singer and a founding member of the Babies and Bad English. He has collaborated with some of the greatest songwriters of our time: Diane Warren, Glenn Burtnick, Desmond Child, Holly Knight, so many. John is celebrating the release of Wooden Heart Acoustic Anthology, the complete recordings, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And it is a package, John. This is a real beautiful package. It feels so warm when I put this on. It is just a warm blanket. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's I've never been compared to a warm blanket. Thank you. No, yeah, Johnny, you're a warm blanket. That's really kind of you. Thanks. I mean, acoustic music does tend to have a more engaging thing between people. It seems to be more authentic. And the reason I made the record was that authenticity. I've been chasing that as an artist all my life. You know, you want to sound like you're in the room with people. And I've always loved acoustic music. I was raised on folk and country music and rock and roll and blues, but the folk and the country stayed with me as a songwriter, from cowboy music to the Dubliners, you know, to the great country greats, to the great folk greats, which led to Dylan and Richard Thompson and the songwriters that have meant the most to me, really.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny you say that because I have many friends in England and Ireland, in that area, and that's there's a Western culture, a fascination with country music and that kind of thing. I guess because it's not prevalent there. You know, it's truly an American thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my mum's sisters, Pat and Doris, they were really into country. And my cousin Michael was playing me all sorts of blues stuff on his guitar. He had a big national guitar. And when I was about 6, he was playing me skiffle music, which is kind of an English version of, what would you call it? Rockabilly. Mm-hmm. And so I had all these American influences as a child. But at the same time, there was this beautiful Celtic music that you would find. It was just there. It was like the national music, you know, and it was Celtic, it was Scottish and Irish. You can hear it in the Beatles. You can hear it with Paul McCartney and the harmonies and the way he wrote songs, Things We Said Today, the harmonies in Please Please Me, Love Me Do. It's all Celtic, you know. And at the same time, I heard all that. I had a crush on Brenda Lee. I mean, Brenda Lee was huge for me. I thought she was the best thing that ever happened. I actually got to meet her about 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a fantastic thing. But my musical compass is all over. I mean, you don't really like just one sort of music and say, you know, that's where I'm going. Even the music I don't like influences my choices, you know.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I totally relate with that as a listener, because I'm everywhere too, and even the stuff that I don't like, I find something. There's a takeaway for me. You know, musically. And so, yeah, and you have never, I don't think you've ever cut the same album twice, you know. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Now, you know, maybe the record company, not so much, you know, missing you. They want 100 more missing yous.
Exactly.
But as a listener, as a fan of music, the musicality of it, it's a gorgeous thing that I don't know what I'm going to get, and I'm going to get a piece of you. I always feel like I'm getting you, not something that you should be doing. This is what you want to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really feel, especially with this record, this is where you're at this particular time with this collection. And, you know, I look back at 97 and you did a record called When You Were Mine. you called it, I think it's 2013 somewhere. You called it the best record you've done. Um, it's got a lot of acoustic renderings to
Yeah.
it. Are you in? Do you find this record, this collection, similar to that same frame of mind that you were in when you cut When You Were Mine?
Yeah. I think when I left Bad English, I went back to New York City and I became a New Yorker again. And that's really where my heart always was. I had a house in New York and I wrote a record called Temple Bar that was about my life in New York City, which is a very dark record. Speaking of Glenn Burtnick, we wrote this song called Downtown that was like, that was the story of my life. And it was very dark, but it was a wonderful record. And then I made When You Were Mine. And that whole period, it was embracing my roots again. I was listening to a lot of Bob Dylan, especially Blonde on Blonde and Blood on the Tracks. And I was listening to folk music and I was wandering around the city so much. You could stop into a bar and there'd be somebody playing an acoustic guitar, an Irish bar, and I was taken up with the spirit of the city and the Irishness of it. And all these influences came back and it was glorious to just pick up an acoustic guitar and record it, and some of it was folk music and some of it was blues and some of it was almost country. I mean, I would never be country because I think that's an American thing and it's indigenous, it's from America and it's the culmination of all the things that white musicians came up with. When you move to bluegrass, Appalachia, more eastern Tennessee into Virginia, you kind of like in a different world of immigrants. And the songs there are really full of pathos and pain and religion and death and crime and the struggle and I mean, just all those wonderful musicians from that period and that just really wonderful. I mean, that influenced my writing. And I think after Bad English, it was like being in a cement mixer. It's like everybody's playing all the time. It's as loud as you can get.
Right.
Everybody's trying to look for the spotlight. They were not really thinking about the song. And then you go back to this acoustic music and it's so pure,
It is.
And I wasn't trying to be a hit. I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I was just done with the music business.
Yeah.
And the records I made from that point forward were very much about growing up and reflecting and where I am now. So the acoustic thing was born out of that particular, but some of the Baby songs were written on the acoustic and they have a country overtone to them. But I mean, the band would make them something else,
Right. Do you ever see yourself going back to that full electric rock cement mixer?
Well, yeah. No, I mean, I'm making a record now. I'm in the studio today. I've been there all week, and there's electric guitars all over it. But it's not by any means commercial arena rock. I think I'd rather cut my wrists than go down that. I just don't have it in me. I mean, I think Bad English was an experiment in trying to evolve a kind of lyricism that was dark into a framework where you had wonderful musicians like Neil Schon and Dean Castronovo. You had these guys who could really play, and we had songs like Forget Me Not, which was really based on the Anne Rice books, and then Time Stood Still, which was a cinematic kind of view movie of meeting somebody on a beach. There were stories inside these big got and I thought my job at that time was to bring some lyricism into a bigger. It was new, I thought it was worth a shot, and we were very, very successful.
Yeah.
Ghost in Your Heart and stuff. That was, there were stories inside these big arrangements. And I thought that was really classy. I thought that was nobody had achieved that yet.
Yeah.
And we did it. And it was successful. But I think people after 2 years everybody wanted to go back to what they'd known. And I think that the Journey guys wanted to journey things up, and
Right.
I didn't. And I wanted to, and I miss New York.
Right.
And it led me all to Temple Bar, which led me to now. You know, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look at those two Bad English records, and they're not the same record, but they're similar. They're Bad English. And I thought, that's not John Waite. John Waite never does something similar twice in a row, you know. So
I was trying. I mean, there was a kind of a plan from Jonathan just to make the same album, to go from track one all the way through and just write something like it. And I was like, what? Why? You know, and he's thinking about selling copies. You know, he's not really thinking about.
Right.
It's just built differently to me. You know, whereas I would come out and do what Led Zeppelin did, like Led Zeppelin 3, make an acoustic record.
Right.
Blow people's minds, you know, move forward.
Yeah.
And lead the pack, not just be part of it, you know.
Right. Right.
And you know, it's hard to convince people sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and it's just a different mindset, you know. Jonathan is a brilliant songwriter and does great songs. You know, I mean, but you know, he's just a hit maker, and you know, that's you're more. It comes from here somewhere, more than the pocket book. I think, you know, we're getting like,
in other words, I don't do it for the money.
Yeah, seriously, you know, I mean, it's you know, I feel like I'm getting a piece of your heart when I listen to a John.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah,
that's the currency that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you're a New Yorker, you know, an Englishman, but a New Yorker. You live in California now, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. I accept your sympathies. I really do. You know?
No, those are the two extremes of American culture, I think. You know, you have that blue collar thing, and you know, go F yourself, and you have, you know, the more plastic. I
couldn't say it better myself. Yeah.
You know, salad eating California. You know.
Whoa.
I love California. I am nothing against California. And I'm in Chicago, so you know, I kind of have a little bit of both.
Yeah, nice city. Yeah.
How would your surroundings affect your music? It's got to, right? I mean, you can't write downtown in LA, can you? No. You know, so your music has to, you know, the current music that you're writing has to be different living in California, right?
I seem to have maybe that's where the acoustic thing has become more far ranging, but it sounds like an English album to me. But you're right, when you're in New York City, it's like being squeezed, you know, it's like being a tube of toothpaste. You make art. You walk down the street and you see somebody or a building, or the weather changes. It rains suddenly. You dive into a bar to get out of the rain and have a glass of wine. You meet somebody. People talk to you. If you fall over in the street, they come and pick you up. There's such a beautiful element to the East Coast. Here, the sun shines all the time. I live in Santa Monica. I couldn't live in Hollywood. I'd shoot myself. But it's kind of very British here. There's 2 English pubs, a sweet shop, an art cinema. It's still got that English thing. It's traditionally very English. But you're right. I mean, the new album is a hybrid of quite a few things, and I'm just going in the studio like 3 days a week, picking up a guitar and just writing, just singing anything, and we're recording it. And some of it's good, and some of it is just me tuning up. But I'm going to go back to New York soon. I'm going to rent somewhere to live for a year, just to be in the city, because the output is it's just more authentic, you know. I think I belong in New York City. And I hope that when my life comes to an end, I'm in New York City. You know, I would not like to leave this world in California. I mean, I really do. I understand New York. I'm of it, and I love it. I really truly do.
That is absolutely beautiful. Just the way you said that. That's every New Yorker is just swooning right now.
No, I don't know about that. They probably want to kick my ass and go in my pockets.
Maybe it's a New
Yeah.
York thing.
What a nice guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't we love that about New York? You know, to bring it a little bit darker for you, you know, we just had the anniversary of 9/11,
Yeah.
20 years,
Yeah.
and I think you were in the city at the time. Where were you that day?
No, I actually was. I just come back off tour with Ringo.
Okay.
I was in the All Stars, and I just bought a condo here in Santa Monica, and I was unpacking.
Mm.
And wow.
Yeah, we all got hit emotionally with that one.
Yeah, that was like
Still does.
that. You know, it was the anniversary about 3 weeks ago, and I was playing with Neil and Paddy. I can't remember where it was exactly, but I came out in the encore, and Neil came out, and we played Masters of War because somebody had to say something, and on a primal level.
Yeah.
You know, can you imagine somebody in an office or a studio designing a better gun? You know, I mean, I know the right to bear arms, you know, you need to protect yourself, but can you imagine some guy leaning over a drawing board, developing a bullet that's going to explode when it hits you and fragment in plastic so they can't get the pieces out, or blow your head off, or something that's like a bomb that's going to decimate everything within half a mile. And some guy's sitting at a drawing board designing this thing, and he's being paid for it, and it's going to destroy people, men, women, grandparents, babies, young children, pregnant women. It's going to blow them to pieces. And you know, it's an obscene thing, and I'm not being naive. I mean, I know it's a violent world, and you need to protect the borders, and you need to fight. But when you think about the depth of the obscenity of designing something that's going to murder other people indiscriminately, you have to question what we're doing here. You really have to fundamentally go back and say, what the fuck are we doing with each other? And that's why I played Masters of War, and the audience just looked at me. And Neil came out afterwards and said, listen, he loves America. And, he was born on the 4th of July, and I am. And but I felt somebody had to make a statement about that. And I mean, where the world is now, everything's out of whack. Everything's out of balance. There's something bad coming if we don't sort this out. The left hasn't got a clue. The right hasn't got a clue, and it's very dangerous. And both parties are months away from book burning.
Yeah.
You know, the right would do it because they can. The left do it because there's books that shouldn't exist. I mean, but I can see it. This is almost like before World War II, Weimar Republic, Germany, you know. Yeah. There's some shit going on here that has to stop. And I'm not this woke thing. What we censure comedians now. There was a teacher fired in a university for showing Laurence Olivier portraying Othello, and he had to use blackface because he's the Moor, right? In Othello, and he got fired. Yeah. Now we're at a point now with that where we can't joke with each other, we can't laugh with each other, we can't use sarcasm as a leveler, we can't hang out with each other and not worry. Everybody now is just speaking at once, and the world has to pull back. It has to become more human.
Yeah, and I like to think that it will all balance itself. And you know, we've gone through this before, but I've been here a little while, and I don't ever remember anything so out of balance.
Yeah, as it is now. Yeah. Shane Fontaine, the guitar player that works with me. We're in the studio yesterday, and it's the first time I've seen him kind of down, really, because he's a very positive guy. He's English, great musician. But he said, I actually emailed him yesterday morning to try and cheer him up. I was disturbed because I was thinking the same things. And he said he's never seen anything like this in his lifetime.
No, me either. Yeah.
I've never seen anything that seems so irreparable. You can't, no amount of glue or smacking around or conversations seems to be able to make anybody come back to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I pray, I hope that, it straightens itself out and we find some sanity, but it's not looking on the horizon right now anyway. Did 9/11 inspire you to write, or did it shut you down a little bit?
Well, I couldn't think of anything to say.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, Springsteen wrote a song called "Rise Up" after that, about coming back. I think if you articulated that, any of what happened, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's such a devastating thing. I mean, if New York City and all the innocent people that died, the firemen, the Port Authority cops, the NYPD, people running downtown, running into the building to help and not coming out. I mean, it was just a devastatingly horrific thing.
Yeah, it still is to this day. I saw some documentaries and it's just, it's heartbreaking, still shedding tears 20 years later. And
no, it's really, and we shouldn't forget that. We shouldn't forget and why it happened. You had Osama bin Laden, who was like anti-America, but then again, colonialism or whatever you call it, going into the Middle East. Do we really belong in the Middle East? I mean, America needs new highways, programs, healthcare, schools, orphanages, education on a high level. It needs to take care of its own. And maybe in the last days of the argument, we should just stay home and rebuild this country and make sure the borders are secure and do the right thing. I mean, if you're gonna get that kind of anger back, maybe we should think about what we actually mean to those people and what we're doing there. I mean, we're not Muslim. I mean, traditionally, there's a lot of Muslims in America, God bless them, and Sikhs and Jews and Christians. But I mean, for a part of the world that is just Muslim, what are we doing there? Since the Crusades, it's been going on. But I mean, what are we doing? It's not our business.
Yeah. And if they put that much effort into that, and if they took that effort and put it into the, what we need here on this land, for our people, it would be a better place to be, for sure.
I think.
Yeah.
You've always got the UN. You got the UN that can go in and help out and protect people and have hospitals set up, and we can engage in trying to help without being the aggressor. I think the UN is like above the law. It's like, it's all the countries in the world saying we got to go and help.
Yeah.
But to go in there with guns drawn, I think that's questionable.
Yeah, it's always a little questionable, for sure. Back to this record and well, keeping with the darkness, probably my favorite song on this record is "Masterpiece of Loneliness."
Oh, thank you.
It's just, it touches me in a way that nothing rarely does. It's just not only my favorite song on this record, probably, but one of my favorite songs that I've heard.
Wow.
It is, to hear you sing, a figure in a landscape, it's a masterpiece of loneliness. That's me. It just makes my heart bleed. It's tell me about that song and where you have to be to write a song that dark, that introspective.
Well, it's back to the country thing. I was in Nashville in the mid-90s, and I was staying in a hotel, and I got out of bed about 2 a.m, and the the window looked downtown, and there's a thunderstorm with lightning coming in. I just sat there and watched it, and it was raining. And it was about the house in Pound Ridge in Westchester, but the two things come together. And it was about being a painter, and it was about an empty house, and it was about, you know, I used to live in Westchester, like I said, and I would drive out the city in my Cherokee Jeep, and it was like an hour drive, and all you're really looking at is highway and the high beams, you know, and then you turn off the road into a country lane, and you would find your way to the driveway and then go up the driveway, and there's the door. Big house, you know, but it's empty. And that stayed with me. That really stayed with me. What happened is what happened to me. So, and I did paint, and I was trying to kill time. And yeah. Do you know, I of all the songs I've written, I think that's my favorite. So I'm pleased that you like it. You know, I think I think the fairly traditional changes, and I would call that in its own way country, but it's not really country, but it's written from that standpoint of introspection and images, you know. It reminds me of country. If you can visualize a country tune, you could visualize that, but it's not country.
Right. Yeah. Not so much in sound, but in concept.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like I say, it's well, like I said before, when I think of John Waite music, I feel like I'm getting a piece of you. I don't get a bigger piece of you in any other song, but like that is a gigantic chunk of John Waite.
Thank you. Well, you know, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, once in a while, you aim for the stars, you know, and if you're lucky, you'll hit the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like, I thought Downtown, me and Glenn, I thought, you know, that was one of those. You know, I could put together a record of like New York songs from the past, like a greatest hits, but from that period, maybe into this. But the songs like John Waite's personal favorites, they would both be on the album.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And my John Waite's personal favorites too.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Tell me about the cover art. I think I see it in the background. In Masterpiece of Loneliness, you talk about buying a paint box, and you know, you are a painter at heart. You studied that growing up. You have art on your website. The cover art for this collection is your piece. How how special is your art to your music?
Just hang on a second here.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's the original.
Oh, look at
that.
Man.
Yeah, I know. But I think I did this, and he said to me, kind of like, go and do another Wooden Heart record. And then I thought, I was thinking about Dylan's Self-Portrait, you know, that album. And then I thought, because of Dylan, I like Dylan. He put out bootleg series 1 through 3. The first one, I was very close to my heart. I love that record. And I think that's where I had the inspiration to put out 3 CDs at once with kind of a self-portrait, kind of tip of the hat to Dylan. So maybe that's where it came from. But yeah, I studied painting for 4 years, fine art and stuff. And all through my life, I've gone back to it. But the selfie thing, that is, I used to draw a caricature on people's albums if they've been waiting outside a gig. Just a small thing, like to make it a bit more special if they couldn't get in. And then people started asking for them. And I was putting art up on my website, you know, and then the works got bigger. But all through it, there was these simple sort of cartoons. This is like, you know, just small things. But you could have it and stick it in your in your office like you've got. It's a small thing that if you, some of it's quite, I mean, it's really quite colorful, and
It's
guitars and
awesome.
people.
It like your music. It's you. Each piece is you.
Well, I haven't got much choice, actually.
This is true.
But I do.
This is true. But I mean, there are artists that do they'll do something and then they do something that looks completely different, and one looks focused, one perhaps doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a hodgepodge of different things. All of your pieces are you. They all have, I can look at it and say that's a John Waite piece. That's it's a similar style with different things happening within that style. It's a beautiful thing.
That's thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably my strongest suit, is that I can do me, and I can't do. It's like Why Bad English was a tough deal. I can't be arena rock, and I can't just switch it on, and I don't look at it as a living. I'd rather slit my wrists than do something I thought was embarrassing. But I mean, I could do one thing, and it's got my heart in it. And if you don't like that, it's okay. I mean, there's a million other people making art or singing, and that's why it's a great thing.
Yeah.
But I can't. A leopard can't change its spots, and I think that's probably why I've survived as long as I've survived, because it's intense. And I think occasionally I do something that people go, yeah, and then I disappear again. I do whatever it is I want to do, really. But that was a cool thing to say, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're doing there. Some of my favorite songs on this record also are ones that are a little different in arrangements, that started electric, head first. Did you find anything that you maybe wanted to put on here that just didn't work once you started? Like a Midnight Rendezvous kind of thing.
Oh, where, no, I mean,
it's like, that's just
not. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that.
Right.
I mean, the thing with an acoustic record is that it has to be lyrically kind of potent. You can't just do pop music and make it. There's like a dividing line running through. You can't cross that line into obscure. Well, not obscure. I mean, obviousness. The lyric has to be a story, because the volume's turned down. It's like this conversation. It's a conversational form of art. It's very intimate.
It is.
You can't go, baby, baby, I love you. Why don't you love me? I don't know why you love me. Not, I'm climbing up this tree.
Right.
I mean, you have to do something that's like, it's full on. And that was, I put Head First on there. Shane actually suggested doing Head First just to lighten up the record, because everything that seems to be acoustic is confessional, and it's kind of dark. And Head First was the only thing on the record that's close to anything like comic relief. It's like anything to lighten it up,
Yeah, and it works. It works really, like I say, I really like that arrangement. And it takes a lot of work to make something that electric into something that is a storytelling acoustic kind of thing.
Well, I mean, Shane had an idea to use the bouzouki. I think it is. He's a master musician, and he suggested that. That arrangement, and I just started laughing and said, okay, let's go. It was like, I trust his judgment. He's an Englishman, and we're about the same age, and we've worked together a lot, and he's my go-to guy in the studio for the acoustic stuff. So if he suggests something, I'm all ears. Maybe I don't agree, but a lot of the time I'll just give it a whirl, But the album did need lightening up. It really did. It was. I looked at it at one point and went like, Jesus Christ, If you're in a bad mood and you're depressed, you've got a loaded revolver in the room and a bottle of scotch, this is not the album to listen to.
I don't want to be responsible, right?
Yeah. Adult
And it is a bright spot for sure, for sure. Missing You takes over the number one spot in '84. It knocks out Tina Turner.
Yeah,
What's Love Got to Do with It? She does a version of Missing You.
yeah.
It's quite the compliment. Did you ever think about following suit and covering What's Love Got to Do with You?
That would be fun.
Do with it?
No, but I always was a Tina fan. I actually covered Sweet Rhode Island Red, which was a Ike and Tina song on Rough and Tumble, the record. I always loved that song. I tried to cut it numerous times. It's a fucking great song, man. And she wrote it. And I mean, Ike and Tina Turner at their height were like peacocks. They were like the African American dream of the most beautiful people making the most beautiful music with this sophistication and savage kind of sexuality. They were the most brilliant on the scene. And Tina went on to have this incredible, successful solo career. And she's a lovely girl. I met her a couple of times. I really, she was just fun. But, I think doing Sweet Rhode Island Red is, it's a challenge, because she's just Tina. But I did Ike and Tina song. So
yeah. The first line, "Every time I think of you," is that a nod to your baby's days?
Yeah, it is. That was I was trying to scat the lyric, and I was making it up as I went along, and I used that "every time I think of you" just to get me going, and then I came up with the whole lyric for the first verse and chorus. It just all came out at once. One of those great moments of being inside yourself and yet being about 6 inches off the floor. It was just one of those word association things,
Yeah, just beautiful.
A nice cat.
Thank you. Yeah. This is Goblin, my Halloween cat.
Oh man, yeah.
I have to ask you, with all your catalog and so much great music and different music, what's the first thing you would play for someone who isn't familiar with John Waite?
Downtown.
Really? Yeah. What a great
I'd play Downtown and possibly Masterpiece of Loneliness, possibly what else? I don't know. Something from the 90s. I think so, that period was such a strong period. My testimony would probably be a like anything from the new Wooden Heart album and Temple Bar. Anything between those two albums that's me.
That's great. Yeah, I love Temple Bar too. I guess I really am, into the darker stuff. I really love it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Have you ever thought about doing a memoir, a book of some kind?
Well, I thought I would get around to that in lockdown, and I didn't. I think everything has been so complex.
Yeah.
My life has been complex, and to write it all down is kind of, Keith Richards. His book was very good, and Bruce Springsteen's book was actually probably the best of the lot. It was very well written. He's a good writer. He's a really good writer. I'd have to take a run at it. There's a documentary been shot last year and this year, like a major documentary with a full crew and lights and action and the whole thing, following me around in the studio, in the street, in my condo. And there's a lot of people who've been interviewed for it, and that's coming out next year. And maybe that's enough. I think I'm not into kiss and tell. I think that's kind of like an ignorant thing. To tell the truth, you'd have to really, go back, and people get hurt. What's the point?
Right.
Right. I mean, I could probably do a book that was just like, I'd just jump into a period and write about my childhood. And then the next chapter, write about maybe the baby's first tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe now, and do like a picture book, one chapter is one part, but not in sequence. I can imagine doing that and coming to grips with the truth and what's happening. But to take it as seriously as to be so self-important as to write your story. A lot of people do it, and it's self-aggrandizing. I think unless you're really introspective and truthful, which is a tough thing to be, it's a hard thing to do, to pull off a biography and autobiography and be genuine.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine it is. Yeah, and most people that are reading them are looking for that kiss and tell, that throwing people under the bus.
Yeah.
And it's just not kind.
It's not a good way to be.
No, no. Would you do anything different looking back? You've had such a
Um,
wonderful career.
yeah. No, I mean, some of it, I've never looked back at what I've done and sort of slapped myself on the back. And I think, honestly, somebody asked me the other day about that. I think my life, I would have been more satisfied and more happy had I had that thing like, wow, that was great. Wow, I was really great. Did this. Whoa. But I think that's not the point. I think once you've been successful, you always move on.
Yeah.
If you're basking in getting some plastic award and taking yourself that seriously, and award shows are nothing more than businessmen stoking the fire to sell more records or whatever. It's the businessmen that are giving the awards away to keep the audience interested.
Yeah.
So I take none of that seriously anyway. But I think no, I don't think I could. The person I am, I'm very surprised I got this far, survived, did as well as I did, and managed to steer my own ship. It's not been easy, but I've enjoyed every day of it. Even the stuff that was dark, had meaning, and I learned from it, and I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, not in a sense of like enjoying the pain of it, but I understood it, and I knew it was a lesson, and it was just the reverse side of real happiness. I mean, I kind of had my life has been wonderful.
Yeah. And is that yin and yang, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
That little bit of pain and sorrow makes the great times even greater. You really know what happiness is when you've known sadness.
Exactly. And wisdom, you can't teach anybody wisdom. I mean, you learn, you experience your life, and you learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's extraordinarily painful, like loss, but you appreciate the time you've got left and the people you love.
Yeah, absolutely. What's at the top of a bucket list for you? Is there anything in your life that you've always wanted to do and just haven't had a chance yet? Or
no, I've done it all. I really have. There isn't anything that I could honestly say. I'd like to move back to New York and have a place there in the city, so I could continue to be a creative, but I'm happy. I think if I could go back and write and paint and make music in New York for a couple of years, it would be probably the cherry on top of the ice cream.
Yeah. That's great. Well, you're going to be on the road. You're on the road now with Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo.
Yeah.
And Neil produces your first album, your first solo album.
Yeah, they've been friends for 35 years.
Yeah. Why didn't we see Neil on anything else? What, after that first album?
Well, I wanted to produce.
Okay.
I mean, I produced the Missing You record, and it was I was, you just grow and you know what you're doing and you have an idea and you want to go somewhere, and I was given the budget to do it, and I just did it. And it worked.
Yes, it did.
He was a fabulous musical producer. But sometimes you just grow into your own boots and you want to do it yourself.
Yeah. And he's a pretty busy man himself.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, me and Neil are working on a musical. We're gonna go and hopefully wind up on Broadway with a very adult musical. So we're working on that for the future too.
That sounds fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're coming to the Des Plaines Theater right by me. I am so looking forward to being there and seeing you. I can't wait, because I have not seen you in your career, and I'm ashamed of that.
Well, be sure to come. Be sure to be in touch, and and let's at least shake hands and say hello.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Yes, yes. And John, it's an honor. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for taking so much time with me.
I really enjoyed the conversation. I mean, you're a soulful guy, and you asked me some really good questions. So it's I did an interview this morning with a guy who was coming out with so many artistic references, and he was so artistic, and I was like bobbing and weaving and trying to come back. But it's great to have a serious conversation with somebody. So I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And I know that, it can be tedious for you guys. I know that.
You make it what it is. But I had a nice time. Thank you.
Thank you. And so did I. And I look so forward to seeing you. Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you, man.
Yes. And everybody can find everything they need at John Waite Worldwide, right?
.com. Yeah.
.com.
And
Yep.
Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm all over the place.
All of those. Fantastic. John, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
God bless
Be
you.
well. Be well, my friend.
Be well.